Have a great time.
Thank you. I was so intrigued. Dick told me he used the thesaurus to write that intro. I was so intrigued to hear, well, frankly, frightened, to hear what he was going to have to say that I forgot to put my mic on. So it is great to be back in Low Country, and tonight I want to talk about three things. I want to talk about love. I want to talk about a hot dog. And I want to talk about springtime. All of you are here for a reason tonight. Probably different reasons. But I want to ask you, why are you here? Why are you here in this room tonight? Charleston, how do you feel about it? On the loathe to love scale, my bet is that most of you are in like with Charleston, and many of you are in love with Charleston, right? And there are some of us who don't maybe know quite what to think about Charleston. Let me see a real quick show of hands. How many of you have called Charleston home your entire life? Your entire life. This, my friends, is the high school mafia right here. Okay. How many of you are boomerangers, where you grew up here or in the region and you left and you probably thought, I'm never coming back, but golly, you came back. How many boomerangers do I have in the audience tonight? Oh my goodness. Okay, good. That means there's one group left, transplants. People who came here for love or money, right? Where are my transplants? Holy Toledo, woo! You know, that, yes, give yourselves a round of applause for, absolutely. I want to talk about love tonight because it is true that people can love their cities. And you know the people who do, because when they tell you where they're from, they don't look at their shoes, right? And there are other people who don't love their cities quite as much. They say that they're from places that aren't as lovable, and then they do look at their shoes. But what I want to talk about is the reverse of that, the question of, can a city love you back? Can a city love you back? And I believe that a city can. And I believe that with all of the accolades that have made Charleston the great place that it is, Charleston can do even better. Charleston can go from this place of good to a place of great in how it loves its people back. So let me talk a little bit about that. As has been mentioned several times this evening, my team and I have developed a way to look at quality of life, quality of place, right? And this is literally what happened. Between 1990 and 2000, we noticed that young, educated professionals were starting to get sucked in to a certain number of key cities. And we said, what is it that those cities have that others don't? I'm an economist. And so we started to make plot points and look at all these things. And what we said is there are 7 indexes that determine that stickiness that a community has, those quality of life indexes. And I'm going to quickly tell you what they are, because then we want to get to the results. How do you measure up? And what can we learn from that? Right? And then we've got to talk about the hot dog, right? So very quickly, 7 indexes that matter to the next generation. In no particular order, can I afford to live here? Right? For the next generation, which is graduating with more college debt than any other generation, our millennials are the most unemployed generation currently in the workforce. Their question of whether they can afford to live here is paramount. I've just spent 3 days in Dallas talking with a new client who's going to develop a next generation community. And what we are finding in our focus groups and in our interviews is that the next generation says, I don't know if I can afford to buy. I'm going to rent for a while. I got to wait out this housing thing, right? So can I afford to live in this community? Second index. See, I told Jeff that my clicker worked and now it's lying. Earning. What is the breadth and depth of job opportunities? And the next generation isn't just relying on traditional job opportunities. If they've had 3 or 4 careers, they might drop out and want to be in a place that's friendly to entrepreneurs, right? Next index, vitality. Is this a healthy community? Our next generation is the first generation that was raised able to earn those little presidential patches, right? Running the mile and doing I think for boys it was the chin-ups and for girls it was the hold, at least back in the day when I was in school, right? Our first generation that really values fitness as a part of their lifelong, we've got the first generation of girls and boys that had equal access to after-school athletics. They want to move to communities that value health, value well-being, where they can be out and about. Next index. Does this community value being smart? And let me tell you that there is some new research that is stunning. And as I mentioned when I was here a few months ago, this is jackpot research to me. New research is showing that for every 1% increase of educated young professionals who live in your community, you have a $763 bump in your standard of living, in your economic impact. So we ran this number for you, right? So if we can get Charleston to attract even just 1% more educated young professionals, what you stand to earn from that is over $570 million. That's real money. $570 million can buy you a lot of stuff, right? It's the equivalent of like going to a slot machine and putting a quarter in and winning every single time. For every 1% increase, a $570 million economic impact. So we now know that if Charleston is going to be successful, over half of that success is going to come from whether you can retain and attract, as Dick said, educated young people. Next index, around town. How easy is it to get around town? So this is where 526 is like a big deal, right? It's going to significantly increase the flow of traffic, help people spend less time in their cars. Now, the other reason that this is important for those of you who are employers, you know how your employee comes in and they've had an awful commute? They're already honked off at the world. They've already given the finger or received it, you know. They haven't even been to the coffee maker yet, right? They just come in honked off. Research shows that our commute to and from work is the single daily activity most injurious to happiness. So when we start thinking about city design, one of the things I always encourage my employers is to just look at the zip codes of where your people live. And if you're thinking about expanding or relocating, think about how to be closer to them, how to be more convenient to them, right? Or as you're bringing candidates in from out of town, how can you find neighborhoods and communities that aren't going to cause them to have to be in so much traffic? Here's the other thing about traffic. For every 10 minutes you spend in traffic, your civic participation in events like this goes down 10%. So you think about your daily commute. If you spend 40 minutes commuting every day to and from work, your ability to participate in civic life goes down 40%. The next indicator is going to pop up on the screen in just a second. Jeff, I might need some help. Thank you. And I'm going to keep it there with you. So social capital. How connected do people feel to their community? Does Charleston, for example, feel like a community that is welcoming to all people? Let's see the next slide. After hours. This one's pretty self-explanatory. What is there to do after 5? So, we